Good morning and welcome back to the Uncharted Leader. This morning, I want to start with a little introduction about what I'm really interested in talking about as a context and a broader issue. But it also sets up the real value, I think, and purpose behind my guest today, who I've got to join me today, Sam Sargent. Sam is a health and wellbeing advocate, and she's the founder of BeGenki, which is a health and wellbeing brand and that provides holistic support for women's wellbeing. But she's also the co-founder of Stait, which is a supplement brand that helps you elevate how you feel and perform in your everyday life. And their vision is that anyone can be their best every day. So I'm going to introduce Sam in a moment, but the thing that I want to say behind that is it is one of those things that it's easy to say that we all want to show up every day to be our best every day. And whilst it sounds simple and easy, I think the reality is it's actually really challenging. It's not an easy thing to manage. And that's not always because it's not easy or simple. It's because as a human being, we are dealing with a lot of challenges in the world today. And, we've got challenges like the recent events in Lismore in Australia with the floods. Obviously, we've got the pandemic, but even before the pandemic, we were faced with a lot of bushfires in our country. And that's just on a local level. I mean, if we go more broadly, we're talking about issues in Ukraine that all of us are certainly impacted by at some level. And so I want to put that into the context today. And whilst that's broadly speaking, I do want to invite you today to look for yourself about what it takes for you to show up to be your best every day, because it's not just those things that can be challenging. As a human being, one of the things that I've discovered as I've learned a lot more about neuroscience is that we have very little control over what happens inside our brain and all the thoughts and feelings and emotions that kick around. And so even when we walk out and get in the car, I know in the morning when I'm doing my drop off with my son at the bus, and I might have a great start to the day, or on the flip side, I might have a chaotic start to the day. But as soon as I get into the car, if there's traffic, I notice that I may have a reaction to the traffic. So those thoughts and feelings are automatic and are completely out of our control. So as you listen today and join me in this conversation, I really invite you to pull yourself forward and really look for yourself about your own commitment to being the best every day and what it takes. Because we are going to hear from Sam about her own personal journey, what she's been up to, what she's committed to, and also what she's doing with the brands that she's built. And there's one part, I'm going to get stuck straight into the thing that Sam really is known for. And it is her commitment to people being their best every day. And from her point of view, her view is that we really can create our own heaven as much as we can create our own hell. And that even when, there are moments, and I know even for myself and people around me, that when we have our darkest moments, it really does occur like there's nothing we can do about it, that we're stuck and we don't have a choice. But, the things that really struck me with Sam is her real life experience in knowing that even when we do hit our darkest days and all those cracks are appearing emotionally and physically and spiritually, that it really is possible to change anything and turn anything around. So Sam, thank you so much for joining me today. And I know you're in an environment where, your community has been significantly impacted over the last 12 months. And so to finally be here to actually having a conversation with you is just really extraordinary. So thank you and welcome.
Well, thank you, Kylie. Yeah, it's great to chat with you. And yeah, what a lovely welcome. So, really excited to be here with you today.
So I want to, your vision to elevate our everyday and for people to be the best version every day was, where did that start for you? And I know we can talk straight about the work that you do with the company, and that might be a great place for us to start, right? Because you founded a natural wealth and a business that helps women with their well-being, which if we well-being really is the foundation to living our best life, right? But the thing that's unique about what you're doing is your commitment to really grounding in science, but natural product. So let's start with that, shall we, about how you got started on that journey.
Gosh, it was a little while ago, Kylie. I burnt the candle at both ends when I was younger, to say the least, in my teenage years. And to really jump into it at 21 years old, I tried to kill myself. I just didn't think the world, well, I thought the world would be better off without me. It was a really dark place to be. And obviously that didn't work out successfully for me. I woke up in a hospital bed, and the worst thing was that the psychologist who I saw who literally sat down with me probably maybe for half an hour after, after all the drips and everything like that came out, she told people to pretend like nothing had happened. So she told my parents to pretend like nothing had happened. And I was confused, kind of got out there, and I was like, well, putting on this happy face and pretending like everything's fine, and everything was not fine. So about 2 weeks later, I called up one of my best friends whose dad was a doctor, and said, look, can you help me, because I really need some help. And he wrote me a referral to go to a clinic, a rehab clinic. So I checked myself in there, and started the journey on realizing that I had this choice of, if I'm going to bother to be here, what am I going to do? And I thankfully had this amazing counselor who I connected with very well. And he really helped me, set me on the path of, you can create your life to be however you want it to be. And, if you want to be really brutally honest and look at yourself in the mirror and, see what is going on in your life right now, you can actually change things. And he gave me the tools to change things, which...
How old did you say you were?
21.
Wow. Firstly, just unbelievable really unbelievable that what was said to you about pretending that it didn't happen. That's just, what an awful experience it must have been like to actually be on the receiving end of that. But then for you to then pick up the phone after that experience to actually reach out with a commitment to, I think that speaks a lot to your tenacity and to your commitment to self and honoring who you are, because I know in those moments it could have very easily that is definitely what you say, a dark moment, right? And to, at that age, to be able to get out of that dark moment into even a position where you've reached out for that support, I think is really testament, I think, to your commitment and your mission, obviously, now that you look back, but that's remarkable.
Yeah, I kind of look back and I think, gosh, yeah, that was pretty brave. But there were moments to that. I remember my brothers, I've got two brothers. My eldest brother said, he called me up before that. He said, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, this just happened. You actually tried to kill yourself. It's not okay. And at that point, it really drilled into me of like, why is everyone pretending it's okay? And yeah, I don't know. I've always been really headstrong, and thankfully I have had a really close network of friends, and so there for me. But yeah, I've always been really headstrong, Kylie. I remember when I was really young, it could have been 6 years of age, I would tell my parents, I really want to go and see my auntie. So they'd put me on a plane and I'd go down there by myself and hang out with my cousins. And obviously there were stewardesses who look after you and caretake you. But yeah, I've just kind of always been that, quite independent and headstrong, and this is what I want to do. I'm doing it.
That's a lesson in and of itself, right? As I think that we can, for all of us, because those of us who hear it predominantly, people who are either parents and or executives and leaders and entrepreneurs. So we have a commitment to other people. And I think it's very easy to look at people who are very headstrong, independent and successful, and to think that someone of such strength and independence and being so headstrong can go through those moments. And I think it's a valuable lesson for all of us to pay attention that just because it looks on the surface like someone's headstrong and independent and fierce and determined and all of those things, that the reality is in the background, anything can be going on. And I think that's a responsibility for all of us.
It's so true what you say, Kylie. And it really literally breaks my heart every time I hear on the news of somebody who has killed themselves. And there are so many beautiful women who I knew, not incredibly personally, but acquaintances who have gone on and done this. And you would think that there was nothing wrong in their life, beautiful, successful, outgoing and everything like that, yet they're crying inside. And, and men too, the male suicide is at an all-time high. And it's exactly true what you say, just because things look okay on the outside, we're all going through our own challenges.
Yeah. And so how did that lead you to BeGenki?
Well, I did a 180-degree flip because I felt that I'd treated my body so badly. I smoked a packet of cigarettes a day. I drank a lot.
Wow. I love the truth telling. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just, I felt like I was, being healthy because, I was eating well and having juices and everything like that. But I was doing the wrong things on the weekend, not wrong,
yeah,
taking way too much, recreational drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and everything like that. So because I felt that I'd polluted and abused my body so bad, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm still here. I do want to live. I've got to make this worthwhile. So I'm just going to throw myself, completely the other direction and just immerse myself in health. And so I went on to study a diploma of nutrition and did work experience. There was a health retreat called the Golden Door. I don't know what it's called these days, but up in Queensland. I just did everything. I did aromatherapy courses, learn about herbs, and just I wanted to, it was for myself really, wanting to just find out how I could improve the body that I'd abused a little bit too much. Yeah.
I mean, it's easy for us to sit here and, have a sense of humor about our own journeys, right? And and at the same time, I consciously aware that certainly one of the things that I know you talk about regarding your purpose and why you do what you do is that there is a, inherent concern about the level of stresses that we have that impact our body, stresses that we wouldn't even typically identify necessarily as stresses. One of them that struck me, in fact, was I was reading an article on your website and talking about, the 7 simple things we can do to manage stress. But I think the opening there for me was also the awareness of the things that we don't normally identify as stresses. And diet is one of them. I certainly know for myself that I would never have related to diet as a particular stress trigger in my body. But as I look back, spot on with what you're saying, right? Like, especially in our 20s, the drug taking, the alcohol, and even just basic food, like going out and having, and I was never big on Macca's or, Kentucky Fried Chicken and all that stuff, right? But just simple takeout food that you'd think would be fine. And even if it was a burger here and there, it's just ladled with stuff that actually does have an impact in our body. And I have to say to you, I was incredibly ignorant about actually the degree of stressors that were going into my body. And I think probably still are actually. And this is a big part of why you do what you do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so true what you say. There are stresses in so many different things. I mean, here's another one for you, Kylie. Last year, I had to go on into spinal surgery because just before that, I literally couldn't walk. My husband, it wasn't so much I couldn't walk. Sorry, if I sat down, I couldn't get up to walk. So if we went anywhere, he'd have to pick me up and carry me out of when it was really bad, he carried me out of a cafe. Or if I went for a walk down at the beach, I'd have to crab my way into the back of the car and lay down to straighten out my spine so I could then go for a walk on the beach to ease the pain. And nothing happened. I didn't fall over and hurt myself. I didn't have an accident. Yet when I went and got my bloods, my live blood analysis and my the dead blood, when it dries up, analysis, and what they found out was it was just chronic stress to my adrenal system. And it's like, hang on a second. So here's a woman who's just spent the last 20 years dedicated to health, eating the right things and everything like that. Yet I had such chronic stress in my body that it led to strangling my sciatic nerve, which prevented me from, being able to function properly. So it's stress is Gosh, there's so many different types of things that can stress out our adrenal system. And you're so true what you say about, just even the foods, or even, the amount of coffee, or, the relationships that we have, or, if we don't put healthy boundaries into our life, this can all just erode our nervous system and those neural pathways.
So what are the things that you're doing, both with BeGenki, right? Because I know, having seen a lot of the things that I'll let you talk to it actually, because obviously with the listeners, they're not going to know basically what we can see. But with BeGenki and I guess with Stait, what is it that you're actually doing to impact this side of things?
Cool. So with Stait, that's the brand that we created. It was originally created for my husband because he was going on 50 and wanting something to optimize his hormones. There was nothing wrong with him, but he thought, I'm getting into 50. I just want to feel my best. I want to grow old disgracefully. I don't want to, I don't want to age and, buy into that whole thing. So we thankfully met a scientist and a science team, and she was doing her PhD on aging and male aging. And we got talking about hormones, and she helped us formulate a product, which is now the hero product of Stait for men and Stait for women. And what it actually does, it optimizes your hormone levels. So basically it helps to bring the cortisol down, so then your other hormones can function better, and so that the cortisol doesn't take that pathway. I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to speak about it nearly as eloquently as Amanda could, but the product essentially, it helps reduce cortisol levels. It also provides minerals. Minerals are incredibly required for our bodies to function, and a lot of age-related diseases can come about due to mineral deficiency. One of the ingredients in particular, Afron, which is a specific source of saffron, is renowned for helping to help you sleep better, as well as it's been shown in some clinical studies that it's actually more effective than some antidepressant pharmaceutical medications. So when we're less stressed, when we sleep better, when we have minerals in our body, we can perform better, and that affects every single aspect of our life, really. So what the feedback from our customers are saying is that they just feel better, they can function better. So whether they're in a boardroom and they're cognitively more aware, or less stress, or whether it's a mother, or whether it's a woman going through menopause, or a young girl who's having hormonal fluctuations. It's just supporting people to be better in their day.
So are you saying, the couple of things. Firstly, what I'm hearing is this thing about cortisol, which I know is very closely related to adrenal fatigue, and it's the spikes in cortisol that shoots a lot of that up. It sounds, even though what you're saying, the backstory of that with your husband and aging, that that sounds very common also with women, right? The adrenal fatigue issue. So that's the first thing I hear. But also the thing that you just said then about age, about hormones, period, because I've got a 13-year-old daughter, right? And whilst I'm hearing what you're saying, not only from men, because, my husband went through cancer last year, and we're hitting that age where, the conversation about aging gracefully, we don't have it, but it's definitely there from his perspective. But then I'm at an age where I've been going through menopause, so I'm like, oh my God, that's me as well. But then I go, oh my God, that's my daughter as well. So, I mean, it sounds like actually it's one of those things that as a human being, it's, with all the stresses, that it's a fundamental source of stress, or the area that we really all need to be more mindful of.
Yeah, well, one, we all have hormones. Two, we all go through hormonal change. No matter what age we are. And three, living in an environment these days where there are so many hormone disruptors, and that's wreaking havoc on our bodies. So, and that doesn't discriminate, age. And we're fortunate in Australia, in comparison to other countries, but it doesn't mean that we still live in, this pristine land down here. Like, there was a time where you could drink from the rivers. You wouldn't dare do that now. All the runoff from farming and from pesticide spray and herbicides and things like that, all the plastics that we're exposed to, you know, even the you know, when you go to a supermarket and you get those receipts, they even have like a plastic film, you know, which goes onto the skin, and every time you touch it, and you may think, oh, it's just, I'm just touching it once, but what you're touching it, you know, maybe once a day, or, you know, maybe you got a receipt 3 times a day. I don't know. It just adds up. And then you get into personal care products, and you get into food. We, you know, I think our bodies are incredibly resilient, and our bodies are fantastic at eliminating things if given the right environment. But, you know, I think that we really do need to take stock and go, oh, hang on a second. The best thing I can do is actually limit my exposure to all this, so that I do provide the right, you know, environment in my body where hormones can function optimally.
Yeah. I do want to ask you then, on the other end of this is, you know, we go from a state of saying, you know, stressed, fatigued, and the impact of all of that on our health, which we seem to operate as if, you know, really it's just a survival thing. And if we look, even in most businesses, you'd say a lot of people do. They do rock up to work surviving on coffee. We do. I mean, you know, I know I'm guilty of it too. And then we get to the end of the day, and then we wind down on, you know, having a glass of wine or a beer, and then we get to sleep, and then we lose sleep. And it's just that vicious cycle, right? And I know there are a lot of us would be living like that. That's a normal life, right? And thinking that that's okay. That's, you know, it's okay. It's all right. Because they're still functioning high, and there's a lot of highly functioning people who would say they're probably living like that, right? But you've obviously gone through a period where you've gone through that journey and on the other side. And so I do want to ask you about, you know, because I think I'm going to ask you about the real joy on the other side of that. You know, what are some of the things that have made the biggest difference, or perhaps the biggest accomplishments for you when you've been in that position where you've really found yourself on the other side and experiencing the benefit of that? Because I think that one of the pitfalls is that we don't make change because we just think it's normal that we're at where we're at. So we don't actually really get in touch with what's really possible. So when you get into that, what's really possible state and what's really available, is there, what's that journey been like for you? What opened up for you?
Well, yeah, quite frankly, I now have a life which I really love. And, you know, people go, oh, you know, you're so lucky to have such a loving relationship. And it's like, that ain't luck. You know, it's like, gosh, you know, I had relationships before, and they were lovely guys. You know, I'm not going to bag them out. They were fun relationships, but I didn't want to settle for something which I knew wasn't 100%. And, you know, I see, you know, so much where, you know, relationships that, you know, they're okay, yet, you know, I knew in myself, well, he'd be better off with somebody else, and I'd be better off with somebody else. So it's like I really fought by not giving up and really kind of going, well, no, what do I want my life to be like? What do I want my life to look like? And what is going to be really ideal for me? And no, I'm not going to settle for something that's just an 8 out of 10. I want the 10 out of 10 in my life. You know what I mean? And it's not, you know, it is my life, and I do get to choose what it is. And, you know, I do believe in searching out for what we desire, you know, as long as it's not harming anybody else. So how it looks like is, you know, it was very, you know, in one way it was very sad for me to leave, you know, a life, you know, which I had a really great circle of friends in Sydney and everything like that, really lovely girls. But I knew for me, living in that environment, in that place, I was going to fall back into unhelpful habits for me. So I had to remove myself from that environment and carve out a life where I knew I'd be happy and healthy. For me, it's living in the countryside. You know, I thrive on green and space and being able to just kind of have complete privacy to, you know, walk around naked in our garden, go for you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, you know, that's what works for me. And I get that it's not good that, you know, people kind of go, oh my God, what the hell are you living halfway up a mountain, you know, half an hour's drive to the nearest town? And it's like, well, that's what works for me. So for me, what's on the other side of that, I think, is just, you know, waking up every day where it's like, I love the man who I'm with, you know, he makes me laugh, and it's such a beautiful, rewarding relationship. I love where we live. Yes, it's challenging. My gosh, it's challenging now. We've got landslips, we've got trees down. I'm not a country girl. God, we've got red belly, black snakes, brown snakes, you know, everything. But it's just like, what's the alternative? Suffering in an environment where I know that is just not me. So it's like, yeah, I'll take the challenge, I'll take the adventure, and be way out of my comfort zone, and you know, marry a guy who we literally, like, just, you know, he asked me to move in with him when we hadn't even kissed, and asked me to go to the other side of the world, and it was like, no, it just felt right. And so it's, on the other side is, I think, is that heaven, and you made reference to it at the beginning of this chat, where, you know, it is heaven to me. You know, yeah, I have challenges, yeah, I have bad days, but it's a heavenly life. So.
Well, I'm reminded of a few things, actually. I think the transition, and, you know, what is the transition state? And I love that you've called the brand Stait, right? What state are we in? And I think it's a great question to be asking ourselves, because the only person who ultimately knows that is ourselves. And, you know, deep when we walk in the door and at home at night, you know, we're the ones that are having to go to bed with ourselves. We're the ones that are having to show up for ourselves every day. And it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what you're doing externally out there. Well, it does, but you can show up, you know, as if things are going really great. But, you know, at the end of the day, whether you're really fulfilled within yourself. And to me, it occurs like that state the state of transition is one from, this is as good as it really gets. You know, there's kind of that mental view that, oh, is this, and the question, oh, is this as good as life gets, and this is as good as it gets? And then we don't take any action because we really think, well, this is as good as it gets. And then we look in the world around us and we go, oh, well, my life's better than that person. Oh, my life's not as bad as that person. That's almost like gets us off the hook, right? And I've heard this a lot with people. Oh, but, you know, the people in Ethiopia, it's not Ethiopia particularly, but, you know, oh, but my life's far better than the people in Ukraine. And I go, oh, yeah, that's very true. Oh, yeah, but my life's not as good as that person. I go, well, at the end of the day, that actually has no bearing in reality for you, because your life is your life. And we have to be willing to step out of that and come back and go, well, but what is the state for me? And the truth, and I was actually at a futurist's presentation last week, and one of the things that struck me was that in the social cultural trend of the time, there is a gap between what we say and what we do. And this is now being talked at as a massive trend globally, that gap is widening. So the gap between what we say we want and actually what we do is bigger. And to me, that speaks volumes to what you're talking about, because we can walk around going, this is as good as it gets, my life's a blah, da, 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 da. But let's be honest. There are two ways we go to bed at night. One is that we go to bed feeling in some scarcity mode, like it's never going to be enough, or we're in some vision, delightful state because we're fulfilling on what we're committed to. And when we're in scarcity, those dreams don't disappear. That dream life doesn't just go, oh, sorry, it's not visible anymore. We bury it, like it's buried. And the only way often is like, well, no, believe that that's true. Because I know it's very easy for us, especially those who have gone through very dark times and come out the other end. We go, anything's possible. And then those who have potentially not been there go, yeah, that's bullshit. Right. And when we're in that dark state, I know I've done the same. When I've been in a dark moment, it said, oh, anyone's possible. I'm going, will you shut the up? Like, don't start telling me anything's possible. Are you for real? But really, when we do the work, right? And I say this wholeheartedly because I don't for 1 minute think that there's no cliche statements in any of this. Life is frigging challenging when you get to those places and realize, we follow these paths because we think somehow our identity or our opportunity to make a difference is attached to everything out there. But the truth of the matter is, when we strip all of that out, and a lot of people are going through this, so I'm a bit of a rant at the moment, but a lot of people are going through this at the moment because of this great resignation. And, when you stop a job, which COVID has done for a lot of us, right? You either lose a job, you're not connected with other people. What are you dealing with? You're dealing with yourself. Well, how's that going? So if you've benefited from COVID, chances are you've done some work on yourself, and so you actually feel pretty good. But if you haven't, chances are you're in a pretty difficult place, because all of a sudden all you're left to deal with is your own level of value. So that view about the possibility and anything's possible, I think we need to probably give more light and more attention to thinking about those things. Because if we at least start by thinking about those things and what we ultimately want, the next natural question to go is, well, one, I've got to believe it. I've got to believe in it enough, like what you did reaching out with the professional that you went and saw when you were 21, right? Firstly, I've got to believe in that it's actually possible enough that I'll take one action. And as long as you just take one action, that'll start to mobilize you into a life that looks the way you want it to look, not the way that someone else wants it to look. Because quite frankly, I've often thought, yeah, go sit in the country in that, beautiful state. But I think, oh my God, actually, I'm not sure I would I'm like, actually, oh no, I need a bit of a blend, because I'm a coastal chick, right? I'm a, my indigenous background was, born, our ancestry is all on water. And, we were even in the, where I'm traditionally from, it's it, southwest Queensland, right? 1,000 kilometers northwest of Brisbane, right? But it was actually on a lake. So even then I was around water. So for me, I know, having done the work, I have to be close to water. If anyone was to stick me out in the burbs, I just feel suffocated, So I want to throw back to you, now that we've heard your, that miraculous side of things for you. What would you, if you were to look back, or just, I suppose put the spotlight on, what are some of the simple things that you think helped you to transition to that state, or some of the highlights that you'd point to that people could take away from this and go, you know what, if I just started working on this one thing, or if I started doing this would make a difference to get me out of this state and into this, my desirable, best self state?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of, you've got to put the work in. It's not, you just don't wake up. I just didn't wake up one day and go, oh, hooray, I don't want to kill myself anymore. It doesn't work like that. It took years for me to, like literally years for me to work out what I wanted my life to look like and how to do that. And it was a lot of trial and error. And I fell on my face numerous times after that. It wasn't just all rosy and sunshine. So I think the first tip would be to be really brutally honest with yourself. And it's like, well, what would I like my life to look like? What do I like to do? Do I like nature? Do I like being in a big city? Do I like the people that I'm around with? Do I like waking up early, or do I like, or whatever? And so that's one of them, be brutally honest with yourself and I was with myself. The other one is to actually take action. Really take action. And I really love Dr. Jordan Peterson's thing of like, just make your bed. It may seem like a really silly thing to do, but make your bed every morning. It actually really is powerful.
Oh, I'm laughing because I was with you on that one. I was like, just make the bed, Kylie. Just make the bed. Just start by making the bed.
It's hilarious. Like every time I make the bed in the morning, I'm like, Jordan Peterson would be so proud.
All right, maybe Jordan Peterson. I need to reach out to Jordan Peterson for an interview. But that is actually a big deal, though, Sam. I've got to say, I don't want to overstep that, right? Because making the bed, as simple as it sounds, I know for me it was actually about noticing that when I would get out of the bed and just not make the bed, it was more that I was rushing into my day, and it occurred to me like I didn't have sufficient, like never actually occurred to me, I didn't even think about it, but what was actually happening, or what I was wiring in my brain, was I was teaching myself that I wasn't valuable enough to actually stand still and just be able to make the bed. That's what I discovered for myself. And I also noticed that every time I'd walk back into the room, that I'd actually be pleasantly surprised when I looked at my bed and it was made. Instead of looking at my bed and it was just this mess, my life's either a mess or no, my life is clean and crisp.
Exactly. I mean, they're little things, and we push them aside and go, oh, that's insignificant. No, this is really, really significant. Like really. Or get outside and go for a walk. Even if you don't feel like it, move your body, just do something. And these little things, like, what do you like to do? Like, do you like to read? Or just do something, like, and getting to that state of of not liking how the day goes to, you know, what can I do to create a different life? There must be something that, you know, do you like going to the park and just watching dogs play with one another? I mean, find it hilarious, you know, watching dogs play. Or do you like the sound of birds? Or, you know, do you like writing? Or, you know, actually a really great tool that I was given in the clinic years ago, and something that I'm revisiting now with writing in diaries is, you know, way back then, you know, 20 plus years ago, the counselor said, write down in a diary what, like, imagine you're writing down in 5 years time from now who you are and what your life looks like, as if it's actually happened. And be crazy, you know, just right, oh, I'm this and I'm that, and this is how I, you know, live my life and all this kind of thing, and don't look at it again. Don't look at it again.
Right.
Crazily enough, you know, I wrote that when I was 21, and I wrote down, oh, this is who I not want to be, this is who I am. It all came true, Kylie.
Wow.
And then now, just recently, you know, I'm working with a coach, and his tact is to write down the day. It's called Dear Diary. It's a book you can purchase. Stuart Walter is his name, and you can purchase it somewhere. I don't know, sorry, but you could Google it.
Yeah.
And write down the day tomorrow as if you've already had it.
Right.
In a really positive way. Like, I was really pleasantly surprised that I handled this with more ease. Normally it would be stressful for me. It's rewiring the brain to that positive. Because if we're you know, we're habitual people. If we constantly think something bad's going to happen, or if we constantly go, oh yeah, but this is terrible, and I'm going to do this, and then that's going to go wrong, it kind of will.
Yes.
Whereas we need to retrain those neural pathways in our brain to see things differently. And
100%. It's really great approach. In fact, I invite anyone, really, you know, if there's one thing you go do out of today, please go do that. Go, you know, speculate, sit in today, you know, if you're going through a dark time, just make it tomorrow. What does the day look like tomorrow, as if it's already happened, in a way that you want that state to be? Or, you know, if you're in a great state but things aren't necessarily exactly the way you want, then do it from 5 years out. It's really great practice. So that's extraordinary. So I invite you to go do that. So we are going to finish up today, and I am going to ask, so firstly, I do want to be able to send people to the place where they can find out about Stait, because I really, you know, what you guys are up to, and BeGenki for women. Before we do that, though, I do want to ask you one question, which I invite other people to answer at the end of every interview, and that is to complete the following sentence. A leader is someone who
empowers other people to lead their own lives.
So a leader is somebody who empowers others to lead their own life. Wonderful. Now, where's the best place that people can reach out to Stait? Well, to you, BeGenki, Stait.
So it's mystait.com, and Stait is spelled Stait. So
I'm glad you mentioned that. So that's mystait.com.
Yes.
Great. And of course, as most of you know, we share this out on all social media. So be sure to go follow BeGenki on social media. Is my Stait also on Instagram and social media platforms as well?
It is, yeah. So on Instagram, you can just do my_Stait, Stait.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for joining me today. And thank you very much. Really honor and respect your vulnerability in sharing your story, and also your commitment to making a difference.
Oh, thank you, Kylie. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, just love what you do, and it's just such an important message that you're getting out there in the world with, with everyone that you interview. So
thank you
for having me on board.
Thanks.